There we go. Okay. So we're here on Heyov, talking about Ayin Beis. The source is Eitz Chaim, because all these discourses are based on the Rizal. So Shalom writes like this. As I said, the Shalom was a great scholar. He's chief rabbi in Europe, not Europe, of Krakow, some of the biggest cities in Europe. You know, major. Shalom. Tzchok Horowitz was his name. It was a Levi. So the Shalom.
That's why a lot of Levim don't eat turkey.
oh, that's your point. Okay. So the Shalom, like the Ramban, Nachmanides, and others, at the end of the days, they try to make it to Israel. They did. The Ramban passed away in Israel. So did the Shalom. So the Shalom, it was not easy to journey, but they traveled. He traveled. So his last years, he came to Israel. He came through Damascus. In Damascus, he met Rabbi Chaim Vital. Rabbi Chaim Vital was the primary student of the Arizal, who wrote all the Kisvei Arizal. All the writings of Arizal we have, most of it is from Rabbi Chaim Vital. Rabbi Chaim Vital met him and showed him some of the manuscripts. Or he saw the manuscripts by him, I'm not sure. But he writes this Shalom. And he had written already a big bulk of his corpus of writings, the Shalom had written. And Shalom writes these words. And this is, mind-blowing words. A scholar should write that. He says, from Matan Torah till today, nothing is great that was written as a Kisvei Arizal. Without, come on, I mean, that's like, people don't speak that. The Gemara, there's that Mishnah, Gemara, Rishonim, Achronim. I mean, you're talking about greats and great. Rashi, Rambam. That's what he writes about the Arizal.
I do say from Moshe to Moshe.
Yeah, like Kom Moshe. It says that, correct, but I'm just saying, it's like very, very mind-blowing that, and you're talking about a massive scholar saying it. It's not like, again, not like, these scholars are not pushovers. And it's clearly there's, well, look, when you read it, it's either written by somebody who's mamish hearing it from God, or it's written by somebody who's completely delusional. Because you know the Arizal, when Reb Chaim Vital passed away, he ordered that all the writings should be buried with him. Everything he wrote was buried with him. And the next generation, his name was Shmuel Vital, took a bezdin, and they basically disavowed his vow.
What was his purpose in doing that?
Because it was that it was not the world would not be receptive to it. It was like.
So he learned it on that Tanai that if the world was receptive.
I guess some people he probably felt that those that heard it would pass on what they heard in an authentic way, but the original writings themselves, there is stuff in there that you read Sefer Gilgulim, Shar Gilgulim. He literally tells his students which Gilgul they come from, all the way back to the beginning from Adam.
Wow.
You're talking about like I mean. The Rebbe is the Rebbe, but the Rebbe never spoke that way. That was like literally telling his students, you come from this one, this is your tikkun, this is like open gili nevuah there, Ruach HaKodesh or whatever.
So what happened with Shmuel Vital?
Shmuel Vital took a bezdin, and they, 10 people, and they went to the caver, and they essentially absolved, they absolved the vow.
And they dug up?
And they dug it up, and that's what we have.
Okay.
The Chidah writes this. This is source, the real legitimate sources. It's not hearsay.
They absolved which vow?
Chaim Vital's vow that they should bury it with him. No, but he
So what do you mean the vow? He did what he had to do with the vow. What does he have to do?
No, you can't just, if a person you respect takes a vow, bury this with me. It's like the last wishes of a.
Right.
You can't just. It's a serious commandment.
So they didn't get rid of the vow.
They had to so-called overturn his.
Whatever.
Vow. Whatever they called shvur. It was a shvur, and he was mashbi. He basically told his son. He made him swear.
So it's on the son's vow. The son's shvur.
Yeah. I don't know the exact details. I have to read.
So we have these exact.
Yeah, we have the exact writings.
And what is it called?
You name it, Eitz Chaim, the Shmoyne Sha'arim, Shar HaMitzvahs. I have it right here.
All these with Takaberi.
Those white books, all those white books.
Wow, they were buried. Wow.
I don't remember if it says everyone was buried, but I think a serious amount of
I
it
saw
was.
one book,
And
Savyad of Rav Chaim Vital.
Could be. There is.
That
It's
was-
possible.
Somebody that
Yeah,
I
I was
know that
thinking-
bought it, found it. There was one book. Oh, crazy
So-
thing. in it.
Wow.
You have to remember also, but there was, interestingly, though the Arizal, morning, though the Arizal was a unifying force, his students did have a major disagreement, because the students that were in Tzfat at the time were Chaim Vital was the main writer. And Rabbi Chaim Vital writes in the introduction to Eitz Chaim that only his writings are authentic from the Arizal. And he actually says very sharp words, also with a vow, like I mashbia, that I take everyone who reads this to take the vow that they should not look at any other source except mine as authentic source of the Arizal. Very strong words. But there were other Talmidim of the Arizal that traveled and left Tzfat. They went to Italy and Europe, and they spread Arizal's Torah. And there's a lot of books. There's a
I
book
thought
like
he only had one Talmud there, Rizal.
no. He had many Talmidim.
Many Talmud, but
Yeah,
only
yeah,
one.
Well, not one. You see, there's another, and he brought Kabbalah to Europe and Italy, and there's form like Emek Hamelech, Ramem Pano, others who have a Kabbalah of the Arizal, and there's a lot of things they write that are not even addressed in Eitz Chaim. The Rebbe brings the Mishnah's Chassidim.
It never brings these down.
They bring it down because the Rebbe says that even though the Rebbe Chaim Vital made that vow, but since the Alter Rebbe brings from Emek Hamelech, from other places, is a rai that it could also rely on that.
Wow.
So it's interesting, yeah.
Wow.
His why is it slipping my mind? That main student, no, not Rabbi Tal, so-called the competition. It'll come to me. Emek Hamelech was makabel from his teacher was this guy that was a student of the Arizal, but it's like a different Kabbalah. There's not really contradictions per se. It's just there's a different tone and a lot of new things. Like for example, the concept in Kabbalah, in the Likutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe brings Shashua Hamelech Batzmusei. Shashua Hamelech Batzmusei, which is a concept like there's something that, like when a king plays with something in his intimate room, meaning his own internal satisfaction. That concept is only in Emek Hamelech. You don't find it in the Reb Chaim Vital, and so on.
That's right.
I missed the vow. What's the Chaim Vital?
Reb Chaim Vital writes that he's the only one that has the authority to write everything from the Arizal, and no one else has such a right.
Yeah.
So he says that he basically makes an isser that you're not allowed to read anything else. So there was a disagreement. There were Talmidim. Why is the name slipping me?
It'll come to you, relax.
Yeah, but like Emek Hamelech that Chassidus brings is from the Kabbalah of that other Talmud who brought it to Europe. Emek Hamelech Mishnah's Chassidim. There's a sefer called Rameh Pano, who writes a commentary actually on the Ramak, on the Pardes. Rameh has a sefer called Asar Mamoris. These were the Italian Kabbalists, authentic Kabbalists, but they received from this student, who was, as I said, I could show you in the Sichos of the Rebbe where he brings this disagreement. I mean, it was a real disagreement at the time. Serious one.
Hasidut is following it.
Chassidus, so the Rebbe says that even though the Rab Chaim Vital wrote what he wrote, you see the Alter Rebbe brings from Mishnah Chassidim and Emek Hamelech. That means the Tzemach Tzedek actually writes that since that means that there's it's accepted. Yeah, I mean it's not clear at the end of the day all the details of it, but there are actually differences also. But you have some books that have addressed it. It's a pretty
So what that
In
is.
Tov Shalamet Ches, the Rebbe actually spoke a whole sikh about it, about the vow that Reb Chaim Vital made, like the promise that he made sure that nobody's allowed to read. And how could people learn other Kabbalah once he made such a thing? The Rebbe spoke about it. There was also another sefer that says that.
He did
Something
make
with-
the, he said the Shmuel's son made the vow.
No, I'm talking about they say you're not allowed to read any other Kabbalah except
So they made the
his.
students agree to that.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
had
but-
left already, right?
But it's an issue. Look, when a big tzaddik or a big Talmid Chacham writes something that he's asks anyone from reading, it's like it's like an issue, it's like a prohibition. The Rebbe speaks about it. There's another. Who else? Oh, the same thing. I think there's a prohibition. Is it possible in the Akdama to Mer Nevuchim? The Rambam himself says this is not for everyone to read. I think he also says something like that. I have to look it up. My memory is failing me. We're talking a little about that result here.
A lot of these things that I
Yeah.
found more than the grouping.
Yard Center.
Yeah.
What's it seven?
Shiurim on Ayin Beis. Just
Did you ever see this one?
I saw the excerpt that
Yeah.
David sent. I didn't see it. Well, look at it.
Who
Not-
did you find out who wrote it?
I read
very,
it
very anonymous. Yeshiva's Das.
right away. I'm not saying there's a problem, but
I wonder if it's dealt with.
I'd like to see what he does with
Could be
Chachmas
done.
Temah.
I hope there's something dealt with. Maybe he made this.
Maybe. I would like to. Yeah.
But without a name, it's not.
Because they're so afraid about putting anything.
You talking about specifically about
No,
Ayin
when
Beis?
you don't put a name, it casts a shadow
Put a
on
name
it.
and a phone number and an email address.
I'm not talking about
They
that.
did?
Yeah, because they want to sell the book. First day. That you need a name for. No, but I'm saying you don't have a name
Problem.
at all. No, I'm not quite. It's just like what is it? It's not like a pashkvil or something.
You're saying it's with shiurim that were given at the shir. I think they said that at the yeshiva.
Which issue?
Yeshiva's Das and the Chavis.
Okay, I can ask Rabbi Glukowski. He's the Rav there. It's probably maybe he's bought from them. Because if anyone with a chraya, like if it was Feldman or somebody, he knows. He may not write to me. He writes based on what I heard from Mashpim or something. It just because it goes down. Someone finds it in 10 years from now. Who, what, when, where? Can you rely? Can you not rely? Not that I saw anything that was a problem. It's
You're talking about that achrayas, that responsibility, taking responsibility.
yeah, and just you want to know. It's like if someone has a question, who you turn to. Like if someone said I was makabel from the Mashpia Rabbi or Zalman Gopen or this one, doesn't matter. Everybody, just a matter of okay. Let's continue on here. We finished Perek Reish Chav Hei about Golus. Let's sum it up. It's very dense stuff. This Maimer. This Maimer is a heavy duty.
You can't mean Reish Chav Hei.
Perek Reish Chav Hei. Yeah, Golus.
I'm completely in the wrong place. I'm sorry.
No, we went back. I know you guys had learned, but if something
We
skipped.
skipped a bunch of things, and I erroneously told remember.
Okay, doesn't matter. So
We skipped a
we're
bunch of stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah.
okay. So the summation of this is this chapter. He's explaining Meichus Temah. Bottom line is like this. The theme that we're discussing here is summing up the whole interface. The Meichus Temah, the unconscious Meichus Temah, the premise of Meichus Temah, he says is really Tainug. Meaning, it is Tainug that manifests in Chachmas Temah. The example he keeps giving, he gave for this is there's a desire to build a home. That desire compels the mind to conceive of ways and all the details to make a beautiful home and all the ornaments, etc., etc. So that chachma is really just tainug in a different shape and form. That's what he explains is really primis ab primis atik. Basically, primis of meichus temah is therefore atik on a lower level, so to speak. So it's not like an outside koyach. Let's say you're using your fingers, for example, to write an idea. So there clearly another faculty is considering the idea and it's expressing itself through that. Or
It's not Atik. Atik on the global. It's not Atik. We discussed this yesterday. Such any part of Atik, it's Atzma. So Atik on another level means as some sort of a giluyim from Atik. It's really
there's expression primis abba primis atik. So there is atik. Atik, pure atik, without is the desire, let's say, to have a dira b'tachteinu. It's amorphous in the sense. In our world, God can do anything, kol yachol, but we don't. There are no tools.
Desire is more rotzon, like
no desire is tainu, taiva, misava, desire.
Desire.
I mean, call it whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Pleasure. I have desire. And a rotzon is will. Will can be something without a desire. I'm not going to get into semantics. I mean the desire as in Tainug.
Okay.
So there's the deep pleasure that whatever that's beyond logic, that God has to create the universe, existence. And we have the same thing. The Moshel is a human being, has a desire, has a Tainug. That Tainug on its own is in this type of structure of existence can't do anything. So Chochmah is essentially conceived as a result of this Tainug. That's what he says. That turns
As a result of, but it's not is.
it is, but it's nothing else. It wouldn't exist without Tainug.
So
So
what?
I mean,
We
I don't
wouldn't
see
exist
the
without
problem.
God. Are we God?
No, but God is us. Let's put it that way. But
God
that's
is-
not what he's saying here. We're not talking about a source. God created everything.
I understand.
But Chochmah, he's saying Chochmah is. I don't see you keep bringing it up. That's why clearly you haven't gotten.
I think that's the big bother.
Is the manifestation. I mean, you could read it again. We read the Lashon again and again. It's Tainug. He says Chochmah hu ha Tainug. That's it. Keep saying that. That means that Chochmah has this. It is Tainug on the level of Chochmah. That's what it really means. Whereas everything else doesn't have that type of, I guess, unity.
So,
I don't see the problem at all.
But it's Tainug. It is Tainug.
No, but it's Chochmah. It's called Chochmah, not called Tainug. It is, in essence.
Atik is called Atik, and
Hold on, 1 second. This is what he's explaining now. So it is bepnimius, it's Tainug, but it comes in the form of Chochmah, which conceives of ideas. Hold on, 1 second. Let's continue here. So then it says in Zohar that Chochmah conceals on the Atik. So we learned that this concealment is a helama atzmi. It's not like an outer levush, another garment that conceals. It is somewhat of within itself, it knows how to conceal itself, so to speak. So it's like a helama atzmi. So to explain this, he gave the example of the father who loves his son dearly. And there's two ways he can transmit that love. One is, we'll talk the levush type, which is, he explained something, or he said he wanted to transmit something, so he needs to have some way to spoon feed or some way to express it. But then, and there's two things that are going on when you do that. Those tools that the father uses are not really gvura. They're not real opposite of love. They're just a way to express that love in a channeled way. And they're also not the pnimius ahava, because it's just a form of regular love, but to express love from an adult to a child requires some type of diminishing, some type of channeling, whatever. Then there is, when they see this child gets dirty, falls, and the father is extremely distressed over it. And, I use the word distress. I think maybe that's the best word of all. It's not just say you got angry. It's like a deep, deep distress. So here you have absolute gvura in the Chetzenius. It's gvura. Because it's not in the form of some type of spoon feeding or channeling. It's real gvura when you look at it. But the Pnimius, it's the deepest form of Ava, because it wouldn't happen. He wouldn't be so distressed if he didn't love him so much. So it's deeper than the Ava of the first that we discussed. And this is the example he's using for Chochmas Timah and Atik, and Tainug. The Chochmas Timah, on one hand, conceals, like Gvura completely conceals, but Bepnimius is the deepest level of Tainug. That's essentially what he said. Now, in this last Pedic, we learned that this is really the deeper meaning of Golus. I'll tell you where I was confused, but I'll say it afterwards in a moment. But I think I understand what he's trying to say now. He says Golus. He says Mitzad Ava Gdela, the depth of the love of the Eibishter. When he saw Lichloch in Eden, he was very distressed, and that's the root of Golus. The distress is the concealment that comes as a result of that cutoff, so to speak. So it's Chaz v'Sholem, it's coming from the depths of Ava. On the other hand, it's absolutely gvuradik to the naked eye. It's mamash Golus. But within that Golus lies the deepest Gilui, the deepest Ava, and that's why he explains. That's why Matan Torah could not happen without Golus Mitzrayim. I'm just reviewing this chapter. And how then do we reveal the Pnimius in a situation where it was so concealed? So he said two things. One, I'm just reading from the bottom of the page. He says the first thing is, right, this is like the child. How do you reveal the deep previous ava that is right now reflected in a deep golus where everything is concealed? Even though the golus we know now is the previous love. I mean, let's talk about our golus right now. We're in golus. There's a Holocaust. There's all kinds of things. Mamish Gvura. But inside there somewhere is very, very profound ava. So the first thing is that we stand up. We don't we don't take the concealment, so to speak, seriously. We don't allow it to in any way impede us or dissuade us from standing up against any mania, any impediment or any resistance. And befrat, on top of Tov Nun Vav, that we transform, not just enough that we are not affected by the pressure of Golus and the hell of a Hester. We actually transform it. And this explained, this transformation comes from the depth, when you cry out from the depths of your distress, from your meitzar. Number one, the tzayka is very deep, and then the tshuva, the teikuf of Av is also extremely intense because it's coming from that type of narrowness. Narrow straits. And that way, you megala, in other words, this is how you're megala, you reveal the profound ava that's hidden, concealed inside this hell of the Hester. Basically, and this is what he says is like this. So where's the sherish of the hell of the Hester of Golas comes from Mechis Timah. And through our work, we take that Pella, that's Pella, and we turn it into Aleph. Aleph is when it comes out the Gilin Eifon of Limud.
I think the kids will put it in there.
Yeah. I'm just summing up my words. I'll tell you and essentially that's the story, right? So the last line of the Perek, I did Dafki Gilin Man. K'may Kein Golos Achim B'chinas Hester B'Dei Gili the Mashiach. She's gal B'chinas Eden Lilas Timah B'chinas Meichad Atik Mam Shazab B'chinas Aspas Chachmas Timah. What was bothering me, and still somewhat, was, when you talk about the interface of unconscious into the, from Meitzel to Netzolim, okay, so Primis Meichis Timah, fine. That, in a sense, draws down the Tainug of Atik, fine, into Chetzenis Chachmas Timah, and that becomes a source, that of Diluk through Cyrus, through here, into Chachma Geluya. So we have somewhat of a strong interface here. All the level. I'm not getting into explanation. It seems pretty straightforward, and you need to understand it. Then suddenly he starts going into the whole thing of Golus and Hell and Vehester. We're talking about Kedusha here. This is a normal process of how, from the Etzem comes revealed the Chachma Geluya. Suddenly you have another so-called simultaneous discussion about Klippa and breaking Klippas earlier, and here about Hell and Vehester and a child getting dirty and so on. So that's what it's confusing, because what are we talking about? It's one thing you're talking in the pure situation. This is also correct how God creates the universe. There was no chet at all. How God created the universe, He used Keser as the mumutza, so to speak, Atik, Arich, or Primis Chachmas Malchus, Senes Chachmas Chachma Gluya, and that's how Atzilus came to be. This is before even Adam and Chava were created. So why do you need this whole? Here it appears the only way to get there. That was what I was confused.
God knew He was going to do it.
So my only way
God knew He was going to give it a big lila and push him into it. So that's
okay. Okay, could be. So I think that maybe he'll say it later. The only way I understand is that, remember, he kept talking that all this interface is a two-way process. It's how God creates and how we return through Avodah. So my understanding is probably that there's the way God created it, that levels. But for us to get back there's no way to get back to the stimus atzmi without that work of not. I mean, that's preposterous. But you see what I'm saying? How it all it's so intertwined here, and it's I know I'm very.
How can the child tune into that deep love of the father after he serves himself?
Right, but you see what I'm saying? It's like, but you have to add the dimension that there was a fall in between, which but pashtus, when you learn how, for example, how from Ak comes into Atzilus, you don't talk about Golus, you're talking about a flow. The Tzimtzum Arishin, Akav, and it's Nishtalshul and Nachashtalshul.
But this is
In Nishtalshul, you don't talk suddenly. There's no. We talk Golus. We talk about Shulis Akelim, Toyu. Golus is like once you hit the bottom, then you come back up. I'm just saying it because the Rebbe Shab is definitely intertwining the two. In other words, let's put it this way: can we reach the unconscious, the premise of the unconscious without Golos? That's the question.
The whole act of creation is a Golos. The whole act of creation, in some way, each level is more and more separate from.
It's true, but that's not what he's saying here. He's talking here the real goal. I understand what you're saying.
Maybe it's the bigger
No,
Golos.
the Tzimtzum Rishon immediately is the
Tremendous Golos.
is the source of all Helamas Vestem.
Yeah, sure.
It's correct. Fine. Look, I understand, but I'm saying, generally speaking, I mean, maybe reminiscent of what it says in Samach Vov, the concept where he talks about the Luchas Shnias. To get to the Etzem, you need to have the Chet Eitzadas, and that's through the Yigiyah of learning Torah. It's like breaking the stone. And it's the only way to get back to the Etzem. I'm just mentioning it like, in a more I'm not. The Rebbe Rashab is talking in this fashion. If you really wanted to break it down, first you talk about the levels, then you talk about how you get to those levels. He's just mixing it together. I'm just saying, I'm trying to make some seder here. That's all. Okay, so let's read.
I think the concept of the Satim or Nelam, so there's the same union of God.
It's true, but
I understand where you're coming from, but saying.
But like, for example, when we speak about.
The phone.
Did anyone bother us?
David is here.
If anybody,
No, I understand. But for example, when you speak about, let's say, I'm not talking about that symptom. We're talking about, let's say, Helam Atzmi. It's you can discuss it without Golos. You can discuss it that Alakus is higher than any Gilui, and that's it.
This is its manifestation in the real life is Golos.
I understand. I'm telling my confusion was because I thought he's trying to explain the interface.
Yeah.
So why do we have to talk about God? Okay, it's clearly there's no question. I mean that's the process here. You want to bring a bottle of salsa from the fridge?
Yeah, that would be nice.
I had the same confusion.
Okay.
And I think your answer is very important.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
what did you say?
mild.
I had the same confusion. I had the same confusion.
Oh,
Where we were dealing with, first we were Salsa and employee, and then all of a sudden we're talking about goals. How the two fit together?
I mean, I'm sure that it's if you read it again a few more times, you'll probably find somewhere some lines where he, because the same thing happened. By the way, I had the same confusion earlier. That's why it's so reminiscent. I'm clearly there's a plot. There's some conspiracy here. Thank you. Because earlier the same thing when he started explaining, if you remember, he started explaining. Where was it? The difference between Korbanos and Keteris, right? Which mimer does that begin? I'll tell you right away.
Bishop Bates.
Yeah, Reishut. Perik Reishut. So he talks about there the two levels of the previous and the Chetzeni is there of Atik and Meches Timah and so on. He goes on to explain it with Shem Keteris and also goes into the whole thing suddenly Yud Aleph Samamani Akteris, how you have to break the klipa, and that comes from a stronger koyach. Also a whole length about the opposite. We're there too. You could just say we're talking about Ishtalshus. Why are you suddenly talking about the transformation of the Sitra Achra? All the prokim Reshud Aleph and Reshud Beis. The Biur Teva of the Noiga. Yes. How Karbonis and Keteris are refined the Klippa. Why are we talking about Klippa suddenly? We're talking about Meches Timah. It's so clearly it's clearly the two directions, the creation and how we do it through a very b'matlam. Okay.
No, I suggest if you read the Kitzur, the whole thing explains. It's a Kemo Golod Mitzrayim.
Let's go. I'm going to read it. Let's read it.
Okay.
So we're learning the Kitzur.
The game plan.
We're learning the Kitzur on page Tov Nun Zayin, 457. Very also Hashgacha Prat is that this we're learning now in 9 days. This whole thing about Golos. Okay. But look, it says that the Arizal says also that we say Nach in Tisha B'av afternoon because Mashiach is born the moment when the flames were rising from the base of Mikdash. Mashiach is born. I mean, it's a perfect example of this. That on outside is complete Gvura, and Helam, the worst type of Helam, and the B'Pnimis is the birth of Mashiach. Rebbe speaks about it. It's the same thing. V'adugma mizeh, the dugma, in other words, to the father, where he's speaking about how the father, the deeper love of the father to the son, which is an explanation from Meiches Tima and Keser. V'adugma mizeh ha'hester ha'golus, is the concealment of golus. Mishum ha'ava atzmis, the ve'eves Yaakov. The reason for this hester ha'golus comes because of the essential, the atzmis, the essential love of the Eibishter that he loves Yaakov. The Sharshe, Meiches Tima kishemen hatev.
So this is the source of the
Yeah,
Goddess,
he said that. He said that also in the Perek. The source of it. Yeah, like Tzimtzum. Yeah. But again, you don't think of Meiches Tima as a source of the negative. You think of it. You know, when I think of like the concealment of the unconscious, you think of it. Okay, it's a level that's higher than Gili, and then comes the Gili. But no, absolutely right. There's no question that he's saying it. You know, now that I just thought of something.
That's a Freud maybe.
You know, yeah. I just thought of something. The Rebbe brings a mimer from Reb Hillel Paracher about the 3 weeks. And it was just recently we found the mimer, but before that, in Chelik Beis Likutei Sichos, the Rebbe has this Sikh in the 9 days, or in 3 weeks, about it. And he says the following, that the Hillel Paracher says, the 3 weeks is the 3 Moichin, Chabad. The 7 weeks afterwards, that in the Chemta, of consolation, is the 7 Midas. And then comes the Hamshacha of the Tziyufta, the 12 Midas we say after Rosh Hashanah. After it goes like this, the Gemara says, Klasa Parnusa is Shiva de Nechemta, V'tarte the Tziyufta. That's what the Gemara says.
Shabbos Shuvah.
And another Shabbos. There's a Shabbos between Rosh and Kippur and the one between Rosh. Yeah. So he says that basically, the Gemara is saying that all year you say the Haftarah from the theme of the Parsha, except these 12 weeks, where the 3 are Purnusa, the 3 Haftarahs that are connected to the Kurban. Purnusa means retribution. It's 7 of consolation, which starts with Shabbos Nachmu next week, and 2 of Tiyufta Tshuva. So it's a system. So he explains it too also, this Hamshacha from Atzilus and Tibiyah. I wrote it up once in English. Yeah, probably the end process. But so the question is asked, what do you mean? The 3 weeks is Meichen? Chabad? The 3 weeks is the Churban? You know, so he brings a mashal. The Hillel Paracher brings a mashal, which I think, right, exactly. The Hillel Paracher's mashal goes like this. It's brilliant mashal. You ever heard that a teacher is teaching a student? He loves a student. Then suddenly he has an awakening of very deep love and wants to teach him a new concept that he never heard before. So the teacher has to prepare himself. So he withdraws for a little while to gather his thoughts so he can reveal this new gili. Because it's not just coming like yesterday's flow. You know, it's a new thing. The student misunderstands because he thinks the silence of the teacher is the teacher got angry and like withdrew from him, detached. Mm-hmm. When Bepnimius, it's really the deepest love because he's preparing to give him the biggest gili. Mm-hmm. That's the example. So he says Chabad is the 3 weeks is essentially the Eibishter preparing a new Meichen Chadoshim that he's going to give us the Mashiach, and therefore it's complete concealment. So in our eyes, it's Golus.
What triggered the Rav to suddenly feel this tremendous love to one?
He doesn't say. He doesn't say.
In other words, like something
here. No, it could be. Look, in Nimshal, it's because of our Avedas. We did something, but it could also be like like the mashal of the Shabbos. This is Shabbos Chazan, right? The mashal of the Yitzchak. Yeah, he brings it too. Exactly.
Is it in the same place?
No. The Yitzchak says the mashal that this Shabbos Chazan the Eibishter shows what's the mashal. The Eibishter gave a beautiful garment to his child, the father. The child tore the garment. Then again, he gave him a second one, even a better one. Again, tore it. So this time he says, I'm not going to give it to him. I'll show it to him from a distance and let him awaken his yearning and he'll earn the way, and then he won't. Then he'll make sure to keep it.
He's getting disappointed, distressed that his son is ripping the garment, getting soiled.
Yeah, it's all connected. I have to look again at the Likutei Sichos, but he doesn't say there what because from this mashma that it's not nothing to do with even our Vedas. That when the Bayis Sheni, the Eibishter wanted a bigger bias, which is Bayis Shlishi, which will be Nitzchi.
So it's all leaders. We're set up for everything. That's it.
I know. I feel the same way when I do Averis. I've got no, I say to God.
You still do Averis?
Mizman Lizman. Yeah, I saw a video. I saw a video. The Rebbe, Joey Adams, this comedian, comes by the Rebbe. He's like a stand-up comic, but he spoke Yiddish. He started speaking Yiddish, started making jokes. Yeah.
They were clean ones, I hope.
Yeah, he made a few jokes. The Rebbe was standing there, didn't say anything. And then the Rebbe starts giving him a bracha in Yiddish. So he says to the Rebbe that Yiddish? So the Rebbe says from side to side, from time to time.
Who was Joey Adams?
I don't know, but thank God it wasn't Jack.
He was like a Yiddish type of...
The older man, you said.
Yeah, from the older generation. He was already older. And he's not, you could check him out. I don't think he's around anymore.
8 o'clock almost. God.
Okay. Well, okay, listen. So Shoshim Ameches Tamo Kishem and Hatev. So that's the shadish of the Helam comes from there. Tev HaSosum Be'etzim. This is a good that is Sosum Be'etzim, that's completely, fundamentally concealed. The best example I have is in quantum mechanics. That's not a question that we can't measure it because we don't have the tools. That it's essentially in a state of amorphous indeterminism. It's not like a matter of, relative. So there are things that remain fundamentally concealed. Like when the Eibishter says, "Upon all," you cannot see my face. It's not a punishment or it's just some things. Or liba lepuma legali. There's certain things that are just by their nature, their intensity is just beyond gili. Mezeh hacheshech atzmi degolis. From this we have the cheshech atzmi. Wow, strong words. Like essential cheshech. Like he said, it was not a cheshech absence of light. It's actually a force of concealment. By the aveda b'teira mitzvahs b'zman hagolis. And through our work in aveda and teira mitzvahs b'zman hagolis, v'ha'ikar b'sabche de cheshech. And the ikar, primarily through the isabcha, the transformation of darkness, b'tshuva de nefesh abamis, and the tshuva from the nefesh abamis, the libi psari yiranenu, that the physical heart and flesh will sing,
Begin to sing to Hashem.
yeah. Shaydezeh pella nasa aleph, through this the pella, which is the complete concealment. Chachmas Tamar, remember Chachmas Tamar is both pella and aleph. So the pella, which is the hidden, the wonder of it, becomes aleph from the expression limud. Ulfan. Chadas. Limud muhusa lakus. What's chadas?
Limud chadash.
Chadash, right.
Limud chadash.
A new limud, he said that.
That's why it's very interesting that the Torah starts with the base, and we have to do our work to bring in the aleph.
Oh, yes. It's the Targum Yenison. Am Shafta Mein Besosim, the Chablan Ulfan Chadas.
Where's the shaft in my sense, right?
Like 10 lines from the top.
It's interesting, it doesn't give a literal translation of shaft in my besosim. No, I don't see no shaft in my besosim. Oh, yeah. With Tigim Yenison, with the Kablan, with shaft in my besosim, with the Kablan also Chadas.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Chedz Limud Muhusa Lakus. Ukmoy Golas Mitzrayim Agdam Lamatan Teira. Like Golas Mitzrayim was a preparation for Matan Teira. The Loy Mate, we talked about Mate V'lei Mati. How do you translate Mati?
I don't even know what it means. I'm trying to tell me what it means. Mati v'le mati.
Extended.
Mati means arrive, touch, arrive.
Yeah, but it also means sometimes it says rotzen, like to will and to not will. Like sometimes I think
We had a whole thing about it.
I mean, I understood
It's
it.
extended.
extension and withdrawal is really what it comes down to.
I always think of it as like it almost touches, it almost arrives, it almost touches, but it doesn't touch. Touching, but not touch. Right? But I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah. No, it is something like that. It's like the Rotzev Shuv is more intent, is more direct. Rotzev Shuv. Okay, so the Loy Moti Hu Atzimtzum Sila Ke'ele Gamri, Loy Moti, which is like the removal, so to speak. He pulls back.
Reachable yet unreachable.
Is the Sila Ke'ele is the complete withdrawal of the light. Eina Nirgish Afilu B'Keach. You don't feel it even potentially. Vayidezeh Moti, through that Helam comes the Moti, the Gili Atzmi D'Teira. Comes the extension, it draws forth that the Atzmi D'Teira V'Atzimtzum Ikra Kavana Li is Gili Primis HaKav. Remember we spoke about that in the harder, that why do you then need the Tzimtzum Arishin before the Kav? because the kav is just a ha'ara, a reflection. Why do you need to go so deeply in? So he gave two answers. One was because it's the whole it's all of existence. So in order to get to that, you need to have that concealment. And then the second was for the primis hakav, which is an atzmizdik thing. V'chein golos achen is just like golos mitzrayim zakdama to matan Torah. This final golos.
The kav we goes is before the tzimtzum.
Yes.
But to reveal it, you need to have a full tzimtzum because the primis hakav.
Right.
V'chein golos achen is gili eiden el ilos timar la'asit. The same thing with this final golos. That we need to have it in order to bring the Gili Eidin Ilah, the revelation of the higher Eidin, which is Atik, completely concealed, that will be revealed L'Asad Lavi.
Say that now.
Okay, well, we covered the summary.
We just warmed up.
That's why I
Sunday,
like
Mr. Shem. Who can I call if you guys forget to put on the conference? Sunday morning.
You text me, I'll get it.
You don't have your phone with you?
I have it here, we can do it.
No, because like last week I was texting you, and then I texted whoever I can. I texted you, I texted Moshe, I texted.
Okay,
You
take
text
one person,
me.
he'll text him.
Text me, because the man makes a nice beep. I just figured out how to make a beep.
Are we stopping here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Friday.
Either I miss a minion or I miss
So
a
Sunday we'll
It's
It's really.
No, it's
The next Sif talks about a little bit of nefesh.
I don't want to touch this. How do you get this back on?
Oh, you do it.
Right.
Make sure it's recorded.
Huh?
Press the arrow. One of the arrows.
Try out.